This is Motorsport Radio. Join the conversation. Contact the show on Twitter, on Facebook, and on our website, Motorsport Radio.
Hello and welcome. This is Motorsport Radio Live. My name is Lester. We are talking tonight about, well, loads of different things, really. A bit of GT, a bit of endurance racing, and we've got a couple of live interviews with Student Motorsport founder John-Paul Latham and also Laura Jones on the show live here tonight. Also joining us on Motorsport Radio, he's back to tell us all about all the various endurance racing categories that you've never heard of. It's endurance and GT.co.uk editor. It's Andy Lloyd. Hello, Andy. Good evening.
Good evening, Lester. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm not bad. It's Tuesday evening as we're talking, and we're getting closer and closer to the traditional start of the season. But
it's interesting. There's a lot of news coming out at the moment. You know, almost too much to keep up with on an hourly basis, with driver announcements, series announcements, team announcements. And I enjoy this time of year because I think it's great. I think there's that sense of renewal and anticipation and excitement for the new season, which, as you say, is you know, it's still a few weeks away, but we've already enjoyed some fantastic racing. Yeah, got a slight lull now until Sebring. Asian Le Mans Series next weekend, and then we can really start looking forward to the start of the season.
Well, I've been getting asked by our bike audience, of which we have quite a large bike audience. Hello, non-car people. Everyone's welcome here. When Valentino Rossi will be racing at Brands Hatch and when we can see him.
Well, he's going to be racing at Brands Hatch. He's entered into the GT World Challenge Europe. I think the official title is the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS. He's racing with, if memory serves, Team WRT. And I think the calendar, if I'm not mistaken, I think it is the last weekend in April. So it's the cusp of end of April, the start of May, and Valentino Rossi should be at Brands Hatch. I think it's going to be one of the most incredible weekends, to be honest. This is effectively a rookie season for him, but we all know he's been around motorsport and he's been around bikes and cars for many, many years. So I would be surprised if he's far off the pace, to be honest. And I think it's going to be a real occasion when he visits Brands Hatch.
And also something for you to tell your grandkids that you saw Valentino Rossi race at Brands Hatch, albeit in a GT car. But still, yes. I've been getting asked I don't know if there's tickets available. I'm going to say yes, there are. Check out the Brands Hatch website, tickets for that. But yeah, Valentino Rossi, so far, due to be racing at Brands Hatch sooner than you think, at the end of April, basically, which is not far away now. There was some other questions that I wanted to chat to you about, Andy, before we get our first guest on from Student Motorsport. The Asian Le Mans Series last weekend saw its opening race of 2022. Asian Le Mans Series doing pretty well, still sticking around, getting some good entries. And the Nielsen race in LMP2 did pretty well. Did the on-track action, though, Andy, live up for you anyway, from your pre-season sort of hype about it? I mean, how would you...
I think it's very interesting. It definitely did. It was a fantastic weekend of racing, and I think the Asian Le Mans Series has grown in stature over the last few years. This year, it is one way for a team to gain a Le Mans 24-hour entry. Mm-hmm. So the classes racing in Asian Le Mans Series are LMP2, which we know races at Le Mans, LMP3, which doesn't race in the 24 hours, and in this particular race, it's GT or GT3. GT3 doesn't race in the 24 hours. So there's a Le Mans entry available for the winner of the LMP2 class. There's an entry available for the winner of the LMP3 class, although that will be an LMP2 entry. And there is one entry available for the GT grid. Now, I think I'm right in saying that I think last year there was something like 3 or 4 entries to the 24 hours from the GT grid. This year, there's only one. The GT grid this year is massive, and there are some very good teams looking to win that entry. So the racing was very competitive. Nobody backed down. You could sense that there was some of the amateur drivers just kind of stretching their legs, getting back into the rhythm of racing again. But there was no lack of excitement across the classes. Nielsen, as you say, dominated the LMP2 class. Not unexpected. They were the only pro entry in a 4-car field, so you would expect them to do well. The LMP3 class saw some great racing, but I think it was probably, for me, it was the GT field that had the most excitement for me. And if you looked at the first 4 positions across race 1 and race 2, it's the same 4 cars. The 7 Inception Racing Optimum Motorsport McLaren won the first race, beating the 55 Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. Those positions were reversed for race 2. I think the winning car beat the second car by something a little bit over 5 seconds in race 1. And in race 2, the winning car beat the second place car by a little bit over 5 seconds. So you can tell how close this is. Sean Goff's Optimum Motorsport are really keen to go back to Le Mans. They got to Le Mans last year, and they really want to go back again this year. So we've had the first 2 rounds. Conditions were pretty much perfect for motor racing. It was a race that ran from day into night, so there was some beautiful night racing scenes. We move on to the second weekend next weekend, and I have to say that the format of 2 race weekends, one after the other, with 2 races on each weekend, which was brought in for the 2021 season to shoehorn the season in so they could complete the season without having to worry too much about logistics. Of course, we were under very strict COVID conditions this time last year. Most of those areas still are. So the idea of moving that series around, sort of Thailand and I think it's been to China one year, and it's just not going to work. But this format of 2 races per weekend over 2 weekends is really exciting. So I'm very much looking forward to next weekend. Okay, and you touched on it just briefly regarding Optimum Motorsport, a real British motorsport success, who for most people under the radar for most fans though. Well, I think they are. I mean, based up in Wakefield, I visited them. I had the pleasure of visiting them about 6 years ago. It was just a single sort of factory unit. They started off racing Ginettas. Sean Goff took the squad over, I think, in 2012. They moved through Ginettas in British GT. They went on to win the the British GT3 Drivers' Championship in 2018. Over the last 2 or 3 years, they've enjoyed multiple race wins. They had a big breakthrough early last year when their success in the Asian Le Mans series took them to 24 hours of Le Mans. They've got some big interest in that team. Brendan Uribe is their amateur driver. He's a wealthy American entrepreneur. He's raced extensively over the last 2 years, put in a lot of seat time. And that team is now very good. They've got Baz Lynders as their team manager. He's been in top-level sports car racing for over 20 years, GT2 champion or a FIA GT champion for 3 years back in the early 2000s. I would hope and expect to see Optimum back at Le Mans this year, and I think that is going to be a team that is going to grow in stature over the coming seasons. Well, if you're fancying getting involved in the top levels of GT racing, and well, not necessarily even GT racing, but any sort of car racing, if you've got your sights set on being an engineer in British touring cars, there's one outfit, one team that's already been going for quite a few years, Andy, and that's Student Motorsport. Yes, well, I'm delighted that we can welcome onto the show this evening JP Latham, the founder of Student Motorsport, a gentleman I've had the pleasure of knowing now for many years, and I've witnessed firsthand the development of Student Motorsport. So JP, welcome to the show this evening. Nice to see you.
Good evening, guys. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. The Student Motorsport Challenge, which we're going to talk about later, is a fantastic development. But what I'd like to do to start off with is go back to the beginning and ask you what motivated you to launch Student Motorsport in the first instance?
It's probably several factors. That it sort of started way back when I was graduated from university, really, and it was all those speculative letters that you would write to race teams for those first jobs in the industry, and sort of the knockbacks that you got, and in some parts negatives that came with it was very disheartening, and sort of I remember being sat down on my breakfast table at home, and I was speaking to my grandma at the time, and she was saying, "Why don't you do something about this problem, John-Paul? You know, this." You keep struggling to get a job. It's chicken and egg. It's experience, or is it trying to find a job so you can gather the experience, and so on and so on. We've talked about it many times. So I thought of the idea of some sort of a network back then. You know, given the experience that I've had in education in motorsport. So that's really back in the early to mid 2000s, where the idea originally started from. That obviously progressed when I went into the industry. You know, I understood why there were those nervous employers to take, you know, young graduates on, you know, risk to business, etc., etc. You needed to know what you're doing. So from a professional's aspect of, you know, I had a number of years in the industry, you know, right up to recently, that you still see a lack of experience from, you know, sadly from students. There are a lot of good things going on. So that really started to fuel it, Andy, you know. And then, of course, as you know, and probably a lot of people that's listening to this call, you know, I had the pleasure of, in part, teaching students in motorsport for about 10 years, and that was an accidental sort of stumbling into that industry. Never wanted to be a teacher, but thought, you know, what the hell, why not try it? You know, I had no ties to the north. I moved south. I went to Norfolk, and I taught motor racing for 10 years. And I had that experience of from education point of view. So with those collective areas led to a change needed, you know, whether it's support, whether it's guidance, whether it's gaining experience. So that they were the catalysts that started from university. Yeah.
Okay. So outside of the Student Motorsport Challenge, which we'll come on to, what does membership of the Student Motorsport community offer young motorsport professionals today?
Well, if you look at the site at the moment, we're in a transition phase, so it's not. Is it the greatest time to talk about it? Well, it doesn't matter, does it? You know, we've had a website running since about 2014, which was once described as a hobby from Mr. Theo Papitis himself, actually. That, you know, he said to me, you know, John-Paul, if you want to make this a success, it needs to be turned into a business, and I, you know, agree with him. So the initial development and names which are ongoing is to simply bring people together, a place to discuss motorsport in terms of careers, in terms of getting experience, you know, and learning, you know, embedding it into whatever you're already doing in education and afterwards. So that was the initial, the simpler plan was to create a network that was non-distracted from social media. Of course, we've been all dragged into that, and it has its benefits. But I wanted to create a network that connected students, graduates, educational institutions, and professionals, bang their heads together for the betterment of a lot of people. You know, there's a multi-purpose aim here. Some of the wider aspects that we've branched into, which of course have been affected over the last 2 years, no prizes for guessing, was work experience. So whilst I was teaching at the College of West Anglia, they were very kind to me and let me sort of roll with this work experience, if you would. You know, we used to take students with me racing at race weekends, you know, under the Student Motorsport and College of West Anglia banner, if you would. And it was really, again, a trial to really find out what it is that allows students to get that experience and how best to go about it. What is the educator looking for? What's the student looking for? And what is the industry looking for? So a dating, sort of a dating kind of thing, really, if you would, matching people up and really trialing that. So it was work experience, and then learning really is the thing that's grown from there. So with the onset of COVID and us not being able to send people on work experience, we've sort of turned our mind to a learning environment, which we're slowly developing now.
Okay, so I mean, it's not often that we welcome a brand new racing series into the UK, but that's exactly what's going to happen in 2022 with the Student Motorsport Challenge. So, tell us, what does the Student Motorsport Challenge consist of, and how does that support the wider aims and objectives of the community of student motorsport?
Yeah. It's a challenge in itself, I'll not lie, Andy. I think I have a little cue card here, actually. I wanted to say, first up, it's something that's never been done, really. And before we went on the call, we were talking about it. It's not to blow anyone's trumpet, but it has never, ever been done. And that's because it's too hard. But once I get an idea in my head, I'll run with it, as you know. So the challenge consists of teaching students and young people about the, as I said before, the length and the depth or breadth of the industry. You know, what educators are doing is fantastic, especially when I was a teacher. But sadly, they don't have the time and depth of courses to teach students what the industry needs, to teach them about business, to teach them about livelihoods, you know, those wider communication skills and so forth. Now, that's because they have to teach students a range of areas and give them a bite size, if you would, you know, of various different things, whether it's mechanicking or otherwise. So what I wanted to do with the challenge was introduce something that gave them a snippet of running a racing team, which for me, if you set up and run a racing team and do everything in between, which has been highlighted on some of the cue cards that come up, or some of the slides that come up, it's not just building a race car. Before you even think about building a race car, you've got to set up a team. You've got to have a business structure. You've got to find and own a vehicle. And then obviously things start being commercialised. It's about discussing things with people in industry before you've even graduated. And then, of course, for the tutors, it's about being able to embed this fantastic project, this racing series, into their education. So giving the students something to really chew on, and of course, the tutors giving students something that's really exciting to focus on and tangible. You know, treating them as though it's a business, and it really gives that seriousness to what we're trying to achieve. There's a huge range of things I could go into, but, you know, obviously time's short here. But I need something that created realism at a young age in motorsport.
So just so that our listeners are clear,
yes,
what's going to happen here is that a college is going to take delivery of a donor chassis, if you will, a package of parts to convert that chassis into a race car. But outside of that, they're going to have to effectively run a race team. So they're going to have to learn how to sort of logistics, communications, media, hospitality, garage etiquette. So this is going to be a big challenge, isn't it, for them? Yeah,
it's massive. Now, I think you imagine yourself going for a job interview. So, Andy, what is it well, actually, I've run the Formula student team. I've worked on Formula Ford for the college. Well, that's fantastic, Andy. But sadly, and this is what I sort of experienced in the industry, was, well, yes, but Andy, what what experience have you got? What real experience have you got? And that was a real kick in the teeth for not only the student who's, you're accessing what's available to you, and it's a kick in the teeth, if you would. Not the best way to describe it, but for the educators, they're doing everything that they can within the power, within how much money they've got and time they've got to give students experience in motorsport. Now, flip that to someone else that goes into that same interview and says, well, actually, I actually participated in a real-to-life project such as the Challenge. There are other things out there, but where we actually, had to formulate a racing team, deal with public, deal with the industry, deal with money, drivers, and so forth, the highs and lows of motorsport. Now that they're going into a job interview with themselves, the CV, and what I would like to describe as a portfolio of real experience then, and that's the difference. They're employable then, they're work ready, and it reminds me of what, this project really came from an idea. When I used to teach at the College of West Anglia, we ran a mini challenge team, and we did nothing different to what we're doing now. We get a donor vehicle, we convert that donor vehicle, and the students were responsible for formulating the team and processing with support from the tutors, of course. There are decisions they can't make. But I used to be able to sit down in the paddock, and Leicester, I used to be able to sit down in that paddock at the back of the awning, and there were 2 or 3 different racing cars, mini challenge cars being run by students. And of course they oversee things, but I was almost made redundant. And it was at that point that I realised what a fantastic idea that was, and that the students were ready.
Yeah.
Full stop. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's what I've recreated and embedded into an existing racing series.
But it sounds like, as the name of the series suggests, it's a fascinating challenge, I think, for everybody involved to make it work. So I know we've seen on social media some announcements of teams and entries. What teams can we look forward to seeing this year in the series?
So if you check out the website, and I'll tell you when that's going live, it's supposed to be live now. We have some road bumps, as you can imagine. We're moving a site, migrating it over to a new system with, up of 1,000 users. So we've had our problems with that, but this is what it's about. We're all learning. So the teams that you're going to see this year, and you may have seen dotting about from the delivery days that we've done, from donor cars being bought to cages being installed, for parts being delivered, and so forth and so forth. In no particular order are Chichester College. So Dan at Chichester College and his students are really getting cracking now on that car. They've stripped an engine. So wow. The first team to strip in engines, that's fantastic. So you're going to see all that on our social media and on the website. You've got George at East Surrey College heading up that team. So a really vibrant Kawasaki green cage gone in their car. You've got the guys, Emma and Joe at Metropolitan College at Brighton Metropolitan on an airfield. Fantastic visit to them last week. I was so distracted by all the planes. The students kept having to bring me back into the room. Fantastic. We've got Dan at College Gwent. You'll see they've just actually launched a video today of myself and the other tutors at their parts delivery and pit stop challenge day. We did them in South Wales. You've got North Warwickshire, South Leicestershire College, quite a mouthful that one. You won't have seen a lot on those guys yet because they're only just getting the donor car, but they are starting their build now and will be ready probably for the second race of this season. But what an achievement to start so late in the season, start so late in this project, given that people are starting in September. So the guys that Ben and Steve, I'm remembering the names, can't believe it, at North Warwickshire, you're going to see some fantastic things from them. Finally, the first to join to put their trust in was West Suffolk College, Leon at West Suffolk College and Alan. And the guys there are doing a fantastic job. They were the first to sign up. I mean, what a show of trust to join something that's never existed before. So thank you to those guys. Bright yellow cage for them. So we're going to see some bright colours and some fantastic things going on. And we are announcing the 4th the fourth, the seventh college, the seventh education team this week. Now,
wow!
I'm going to tell you now.
Fantastic. When can we start to expect to hear about drivers?
Yeah, it is something that's on the radar. There's about 30 different things on my radar at the moment about which drivers are going to be signing with these. For most teams, they'll all stick with one driver for the season. With the way that Motorsport UK has helped us, and BRFCC have let us do the rules, is that these teams will be running drivers for a drivers' championship for the City Car Cup, as you know. Mm-hmm. But they'll also be able to, no matter who drives for that team, there'll be sort of a constructors' championship, if you would, what's been termed as an award. So one or two drivers that might run for one particular team will all earn points for that team. So that's where the challenge comes in, and those points have been really chopped down. It's not 10, 25, 35 points. They're much closer for a closer series. Drivers' announcements, you'll hear it first from us. We haven't had any commitments yet, other than College Grant's going to run with one of the tutors, which we want to avoid, really, because it's about pulling in paid drivers. But I don't have any announcements as yet, sorry.
Okay. So when can we, because this is going to be run as an inter-series within, as you've already mentioned, the City Car Cup, which is itself a very popular and very competitive championship.
It is.
So they're going to be racing with some people, well, everybody takes motorsport seriously, but some people who are, taking their first step on the motorsport run and are really looking to make an impact. So this is not some kind of junior series. This is proper motorsport, isn't it?
Yeah, you call it grassroots, which it is, but it's, whether it's £10,000 vehicle build or £250,000 vehicle build, that people take it seriously.
Yes.
People make mistakes as bad driving and so forth, but there are things in place, especially with the BRFCC, where they have a driver, an understanding agreement that they all have to fill out or adhere to. The driving standards are looked at, but no matter how much you're spending on a racing car, it's taken seriously, and that's what I wanted to get with the challenge. We didn't want a separate grid. We didn't want to be running at 7 colleges on their own against each other. We want to be putting them up against not just themselves, to benchmark themselves and challenge each other colleges and create that camaraderie and teamwork. But we want to put them up against the public as well. It will be tough, but that's what we're there for, and we will help them. We'll help them get through. Yeah.
Sure. And this is the first year of the challenge. As we look forward, how do you see this developing?
Well, I have lots of ideas, and the guys at Student Motorsport say no most of the time. Well, this is one idea they let me run with, and we just going back to that. Actually, this was the sensible time to do this. Would have been when we're much further developed as a company and an organisation, but with the onset of COVID, it was the time to do it. Really, to spend that year, if you would, planning and writing what the challenge is. The future. Obviously, we want to build the grid for the second year, which will start in September this year. So September 23 is really when the teams get started with the challenge. They build the teams, they acquire a donor vehicle, they get the parts, and they start building the vehicles and so forth. So not only do we want to expand the grid and cause more problems for the BRSCC and ourselves, but we'd like to electrify this series. So it's the first time I've talked about it on air, but it's something that I need to learn more about and want to get involved in. And us as a company, we want to solve, electric motorsport for education, or introduce it. So what was quickly apparent with the challenge is that it's complex enough for colleges, and it's a fantastic thing to get involved in, even perhaps early years and foundation years for universities. But what we're rapidly aware of is that electric is coming. We can't ignore it, and we don't want to ignore it. We want to embrace it. It's quite interesting when you look into it, particularly powertrains and control systems. We want to introduce an electric series for universities. or colleges that deliver degree courses. For example, Brighton, a Greater Brighton College deliver degree courses, and places like Bridgewater and so forth. So we want to electrify it in the way it exists at the moment. So it's a vehicle conversion. It continues to teach them about everything about motorsport and the different things that we've talked about. But what we need to do is narrow the focus a little bit. We're well aware of some of the other competitions that exist out there, such as Formula Student. That was something I participated in, the fantastic engineering projects get involved in. But the electrification of this it'll be a conversion probably. And narrowing of the focus so that cars are on grid and competing in an educational electric series. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I can only wish you all the very best of this year. It's going to be fascinating to see how the Student Motorsport Challenge develops over the course of 2022 and beyond. Final question: when can we expect to see the cars out on track for the first round?
The first round is, I'm just gazing at my calendar just because I knew you'd ask me that. Alton Park International Circuit is the first round, where you'll see one qualification, 2 races, and that is on a Saturday, the 9th of April this year.
Fantastic.
We're hoping most colleges hit that. 1 or 2 might struggle, and we can understand that because of the, some are late to the party, so to speak. There's only 8 weeks to go. We don't want them to rush builds, so that's when you're surprised, yeah.
It sounds like Formula One back in the 1970s. It sounds absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, but we've got to be safe. Yeah.
Brilliant, JP. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been great talking to you, and we look forward to seeing the Student Motorsport Challenge out on grid later this year.
Thank you very much. Can I just quickly say a thank you to people?
Of course, go ahead.
So, don't want to take too much time, but it is really, really important to remember just how people have supported us to make this happen, including yourself, Andy. You have an involvement in what we do. Thank you to you guys for hosting what we do. But the big thank yous to Student Motorsport, the team, Patrick and James at Student Motorsport, who make things look pretty, and a lot more. The BRSCC and obviously Motorsport UK for allowing us to embed this into their championship and obviously support with rules. A massive, massive thank you to Simon at Essential Racing, who provides the parts and allowed us to build cars at their place and write build guides and deliver parts all over the country. And finally, Nankang for their involvement in our Pit Stop Challenge. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, JP. We shall speak to you again very soon and look forward to witnessing the developments of the Student Motorsport Challenge in 2022. Back to you, Lester.
Motorsport Radio.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Ray from the Kawasaki Racing Team.
Hi, this is Nick Hamilton.
Hi, I'm Jamie Chadwick.
Hey everyone, I'm Bradley Smith.
Hi, I'm Joan Zacco.
Hi, I'm Bradley Wright.
Hi, I'm Seb Morris.
Hi, I'm Dan Lingford from Honda Racing, British Superbike team, and this is Motorsport Radio. Hi, I'm Harry Webb, and this is... What's it? I went out there. Hi, I'm Harry Webb, this is Motorsport Radio.
This is Motorsport Radio.
1, 2, 3.
Join the conversation. Contact the show on Twitter, on Facebook, and on our website, Motorsport Radio.
Thank you very much to Mr. J.P. Latham there, telling us all about how you can get involved in some fantastic stuff. I've been keeping an eye on the old Student Motorsport basically since it began, and well, Andy, they've gone from strength to strength, haven't they? And some exciting stuff this year.
Well, they really have, and the Student Motorsport Challenge is an incredible initiative, and I've been following it very closely now for a number of years, and it's the key thing that any young person needs when they're looking to develop a motorsport career is hands-on experience. And as JP was saying, when you're sitting down at an interview with a race team and you're applying for a job, they want to know what you can do when you walk through the door, and if you can show them you've got that experience, that is really, really valuable. So I think this is going to be a fascinating. Plus the fact I think it also builds in a proper element of competition. You know, these are proper race cars competing in I keep using the word proper, a proper championship. And if you've ever seen City Car Cup racing, it is really fast and furious, as any one make series is. So I think they're going to find it a huge challenge. I think there's going to be some major highs. There's going to be some disappointments, as there always is in motorsport. Yeah. But I think at the end of it, they're going to look back and go, wow, that was an incredible experience, and really benefit from it. And I think if there's the support from the educational establishments and industry in the Student Motorsport Challenge, this could be the foundation of something very big moving forward. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this development continues.
Yeah, I mean, JP, when he was on, he said something really interesting, something that I'm actually considering now as an employer, because as you might know, Andy, and maybe other people as well, we have had an unusual amount of success here at Motorsport Media, Motorsport Radio, in that we have worked with media talent, inexperienced commentators, and through our partners at the grassroots level at Fab Racing, we've given people like Kiko Giles, there's so many I forgot the names of, Liam Hodgins, we've given I suppose Tom Brooks to start off with as well, and Tristan Finocchiaro, and now they've all graduated after a year with us, and a year with me. Somehow, I don't know what it is I told them exactly, but anyway, they all went and joined Dorna in MotoGP in their media department. And yeah, when JP says, you get people coming to you, and I receive a lot of CVs and applications from people with no experience whatsoever, just with a passion, and they think they're going to do well at it. But where do you start? What do you do with, no money and stuff? So these are considerations that, as an employer as well, I look at, and thankfully for some young lucky person, I'm willing to give people a chance to actually see how well they do and develop. And
I think that's fantastic. And I think any industry or profession needs new people coming into it. And really, I look at it from two views. I think from the motorsport perspective, but I've also been in the working environment, and I've employed people now for many years, and I like to think that I understand what it takes to develop somebody who's got enthusiasm, yes, wants to work hard, but lacks the skills, lacks the etiquette. They just need guidance. They need mentoring in a non-judgmental, non-critical environment where they can, yes, they might make a mistake, but they'll learn from that mistake, and that they'll grow with that. And I think that's really key. And I think this is what the Student Motorsport Challenge will allow young professionals to do to an extent. They'll be working with their college tutors, with experienced educational experts, guiding them and growing their talent. And I think it will be really interesting to see not only how successful this is, but who comes out of this and goes on to greater things. I've spoken to a number of young professionals, and they all say the absolute key thing is to get experience and to leverage that experience to get more experience and grow from there.
Absolutely, and just remind us again what JP was saying. His website, Student Motorsport, which is going under some enhancements, let's say. Just remind us for those interested and want to get involved. And yeah, go on, Andy.
If you Google Student Motorsport, that will take you to the Student Motorsport site. I believe it's studentmotorsport.com. Mm-hmm. The Student Motorsport Challenge, of course, is for colleges, but certainly I would suggest to everybody is to follow it, understand it, follow their on-track progress, and of course, if you're thinking about a motorsport-related education, you might want to be looking at the colleges and educational establishments who are following this, and maybe think about applying to them for next year and seeing if you can get involved in the 2023 programme.
And it could be the case that maybe you pick up some advice just by staying tuned to Motorsport Radio, dare I say it, because leading professionally into our next guest, Andy, who is, I'll let you introduce.
Laura, hi, good evening. Is your microphone working, Laura? Can't hear at the moment.
Oh yeah, I think she might be on mute, I don't know. We can definitely see you. Well, there's a conundrum straight off the bat. And like you were saying, Andy, yes, sometimes you might make mistakes. But
these things happen. Laura, can you hear us now?
Oh, we still can't hear Laura. You can't hear her, can you, Andy? I can't hear her.
I cannot hear Laura, no.
Oh dear. Well, what would we suggest in a time like this, Andy? I know.
Well,
go on.
I was going to say, let's give Laura a chance to see if she can
join
her microphone problems.
Yeah, and then
I can see her, but I can't hear her.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. While Laura, our next guest, is sorting that out, I'm going to ask you a little question, Andy. Because if you recall, listeners, former Formula One driver Daniil Kvyat has been dipping his toe in the GT arena, and he's now joining the WEC with G-Drive.
Yes, I mean this is a very interesting move. We know that Kvyat has been around Formula One now for some years. Last season he was reserve driver for Alpine. He lost his seat at AlphaTauri to Yuki Tsunoda the previous season. But it was announced on Monday that he will be joining the G-Drive squad for 2022 FIA World Endurance Championship, driving a G-Drive LMP2 alongside René Binder and James Allen. And I think it's a fantastic move for him. Roman Rusinov, who controls the G-Drive racing program, he sort of manages the whole program. He's taken that program to quite a few different LMP2 teams over the year, but he's been very, very successful. He's currently working alongside Algarve Pro Racing, and I think he's chosen, I think, a very good driver lineup for the WEC. James Allen is somebody that we spoke about over the last couple of weeks. He was out in Daytona. He's been around LMP2 now for a number of years. First race at Le Mans in 2017. He's very fast. He's very dependable. And I think he will be a great partner for Kvyat. Rusinov has always had his eyes on Daniel for some seasons now. Daniel is a very capable driver. You know, you've got to survive in Formula One. Rusinov still believes that there's more for Kvyat to do in Formula One, so he's not saying that this is the definitive move for him to come over into the WEC. But nevertheless, it gives him a chance at a World Championship. It gives him a chance for Le Mans, which I think is going to be huge. Formula One drivers typically do well at Le Mans. You know, we've seen Fernando Alonso come over. We've seen Jenson Button. You know, numerous Formula One drivers. Typically, they do it pretty much at the end of their Formula One career, or when they feel they are calling time on their Formula. Of course, not the case with Fernando Alonso. He came into endurance racing and then moved back into Formula One. So I think that could well be what Kvyat is looking to do. So I think this is a this is a long game, but I think he's got his head screwed on the right way. He can see what's happening with the popularity of LMP2. He can see what's happening with developments in hypercar and LMDH. And he wants to make sure that if doors are closing for him in Formula One, that there are paths in endurance racing that he can follow. And I think he's going to do extremely well.
Well, we will find out exactly how well he does with regular updates from the enduranceandgt.co.uk editor, Mr. Andy Lloyd, who is it's just me and you basically tonight with a few guests, isn't it? It's usually Josh presenting the show and stuff. So. But
it's nice to have a change, isn't it? It's really good. Nice
to have a positive change for the good. Anyway, so we've put away our spanners. And we've done some mechanicking with Skype. And I'm going to say, let's welcome back Laura.
Laura, hi, good evening.
Yay.
I think we're there. How are we doing?
Excellent. Laura, for those of our listeners who are not familiar with you, Laura Jones, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. You are, if I may say, something of a phenomenon within the world of motorsport. You're a mechanic, you're a team member with a very successful GT team, and you've been a team member with other very successful GT teams. You're a photographer, you've been active on social media, you're an equestrian, you've been involved in the promotional and media side, and this year you're competing for the top prize in the 2022 Formula Woman prize, which I'd like to come on to later. But before we talk about that and your preparation for the final, I'd like to go back to the start of your motorsport career and ask you, where did your interest in motorsport come from, Laura?
It's my dad to blame for that, of all people. So he used to do a bit of sort of road rallying and hill climbing, and then unfortunately I was born, so that all stopped. He then kind of went into classic cars, so cars were always, sort of around the family and everything, and then being taken to sort of Mallory Park and Donington as a young child to watch the touring cars and the sort of motorbikes and sidecars. So the interest has always been there. It's always been in the family, so it was going to happen at some point, I think.
And how did you make the transition from racing enthusiast to race mechanic? Because that's quite a big jump, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. It all happened quite strangely. So I was actually asked to be a grid girl for a GT3 team back in 2018, I think it was, which was completely out of the blue, nothing I'd ever done. So ended up doing that for most of the season, and being totally honest, was getting bored in between waiting for the race start. So started tinkering with the car as and when, and eventually they turned around to me and they said, "Do you want to come to a test event with us as a number 2? We'll see how you get on." And yeah, the rest is history, really. So that's where we're at now.
Fantastic. And because you've got you've got a Mark 1 Escort, haven't I seen on social media? Something that looks rather nice.
Yeah, I got a Mark 2, 1977.
Ah, okay.
She picked slowly, so yeah.
Okay. And of course, the big news at the back end of last year, moving into 2022, was your entry into the contest to win the 2022 Formula Woman prize. So for the benefit of our viewers who aren't familiar with this, could you explain what it is and how you came to apply for it last year?
Absolutely. So how I actually came about to applying for it was through a good friend of mine, Gemma Moore, who you'll know is younger sister to Sarah Moore, who obviously competes in.
Oh, of course, yeah.
W Series. So she made me aware of it, and what the competition is a female-based competition, and it started off with, I think it was around about 800 people started in the main sort of assessment to see whether or not you'd qualify. The aim of the game is to prove that you are worthy of a seat in a GT4 McLaren in GT Cup, which obviously anyone in this industry knows the sort of value and everything behind that. So it's a huge prize. So
I mean, that's a £250,000 prize, isn't it?
Exactly.
That is staggering.
Yeah, so no, massive prize, and yeah, the opportunity to do that for anyone within the industry or outside of the industry is absolutely phenomenal. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of girls at the minute who have got through to where we are now that are heads down, pressure's on.
Oh, and what have you been assessed on so far to get to the stage where you are competing in the final round?
So original assessment, mine actually took place at Bedford Autodrome, so down at Palmer's. It was based on numerous things, so fitness test being one of them. So they sort of put you through everything just to make sure that your basic fitness is there. Driving, so the actual speed of your driving, so to speak, wasn't a huge thing. It was more your consistency and understanding of the lines to show that you had kind of the basics and the groundworks of it there. We also did a media test, so just to see how you get on with being interviewed, quite randomly as well. So you jump out the car and there'd be, possibly a camera straight there, which you weren't kind of...
Okay.
Like. We did karting. That wasn't going towards the actual assessment points per se, but we did some karting as well. And then the other thing was a written test. So it was quite a combination of different things. It wasn't just based on driving alone. So yeah, it was interesting to see that and see how they put all of that together.
Because you've just taken and passed your ARDS test, have you not?
Yes, correct, yeah.
And was that part of your sort of selection criteria for participation in the final round, or is that something you've done in expectation that you're going to win it?
No, to be honest with you, so the one good thing about Formula One is you cannot enter if you've raced previously.
Yes, yeah.
And there's loads of scholarships where you have to have karted and stuff like that. So it's the one amazing thing about this competition that Grey and Blue has sort of put into this. You can't have any experience. The ARDS test itself was... I've always wanted to do my race licence, so it was more of a sort of personal challenge to see if I could get it and kind of tick it off the list, I guess. So I thought now's a good time to get it done, and fingers crossed we can make some use of it.
Fantastic. And the final round, I believe, is March, is it not, for Formula Woman?
Yeah.
And what will you be? What will that day look like? Do you think? Have you been told what you're going to be tested on?
Yeah, within reason. I think a few things are going to be sort of kept until the day when we get there. So 2nd and 3rd of March are the two big days that we're all working towards. All I know at the moment is that there will be a lot of karting that's going to be done, so that's something that I'm working on at the moment. There will be a simulator test, I believe, so on the driving sim, a reaction test, a media test, and I believe a written test as well. The fitness, we've been told, is out a bit for this stage, as we've kind of proved that we're sort of at that point. However, going through to then the main finals, I'm not sure as to whether or not that will come back in again. Sure.
Because on the karting side, did I not see you were invited to? You were a test driver on at a karting circuit a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, so Daytona Karting kindly invited me down to Milton Keynes. We went out in the D-Max karts, which are a lot quicker than karts that I've been used to. So I've sort of done literally corporate days. So Greystone, for example, the GT team that I'm with, they invited us down last year, and we did sort of a corporate day with them, and the karts were obviously much slower, less power. That was enough for me, to be honest with you. So to go out in these Daytona cars, and it was slightly wet as well, was quite an experience. They're sort of 70 miles an hour up the straight, so you can imagine when you're that close to the floor at 70.
Yeah, brilliant. When I saw that, I thought, wow, you've moved to aspiring racing driver to being a test driver and development driver. I thought that's pretty good going in about 6 months. Because one of the things I've noticed that you've been very active on social media is you've been building your brand partners. And I'm guessing that's kind of taking you down the path of sponsors as well. Funding a racing career has always been one of the biggest challenges for aspiring race car drivers. So how have you approached what must have been a brand new challenge for you?
Oh, do you know what? It's been a huge learning curve, but it's opened my eyes massively as to how difficult it is. Obviously, working in the industry, I see people all the time, friends that I've got to know through the paddock that, I'm sort of saying, why are you not racing this year? Couldn't get sponsorship. And until you actually try to do it yourself, you don't realise the challenges. So my actual sponsors that I started off with have allowed me to build up my own kind of network hub, so to speak, which I feel then has allowed me to then get my later sponsors, my later partners, who have actually then worked together, which I think is fantastic. I think the main thing is ensuring that you're giving them something back. It's very, very easy to kind of go, could you give me this? I'm going racing. You need to ensure that you've got some value in yourself and that you're going to actually that as well. There's plenty of people that do a big announcement, I've got this sponsor, and you hear nothing back from them. You don't kind of see anything else. You don't learn about the sponsor. So that's one thing I would sort of say I do kind of pride myself in, is that I'm constantly trying to push them. And if I see maybe a doorway that would open that may suit them, is kind of introduce them where possible to kind of help them out on their side as well.
And you touched on Greystone GT. They've had a very successful last 12 months, and by the looks of it, a very busy 2022 season coming up. And you're going to be part of that, I take it, in GT Cup?
Yes, correct. I can't say too much at the moment because obviously there's a few announcements to come out. But
sure.
It's going to be a very, very busy and a very exciting year. Just to be a part of the team, to be honest, is quite a privilege, really, because I think obviously with last year being their first proper season we had, and then obviously we just got back from golf. We won the GT4 Golf 12 Hour. I think there's high expectations to go on there. It's a fantastic team to work with, absolutely.
And by the looks of it, you might be going abroad as well, because they've got an entry into the GT4 European Series, haven't they?
That's correct.
So that's going to be... Well, I think they're going to be a fantastic team to work with. I think that's going to be a really exciting programme this year. I should be following them very closely. I guess my last question, bearing in mind your sort of entry-level experience into motorsport and the success that you've had so far, and fingers crossed that you're successful in the next round and we see you on the grid in GT Cup, what advice would you give to a young person today looking to break into motorsport?
I think the best thing I can say is you need to be prepared to come out your comfort zone. Especially when you're quite young. Obviously, as you know, it can be quite an intimidating kind of industry. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of money there, so if things go wrong, it's, it's a big, big thing. So you've got to be willing to obviously put the graft in. I think, as I'm pretty sure you were sort of touching on earlier with John-Paul, a lot of people aren't willing to take you on without experience. So I think you've got to be willing to sort of go in there and maybe go a little bit voluntary and just show that you're willing, show that you've got that work ethic. And going with an open mind, you might go in there with the intention of doing one role, but there may be another role completely better suited for you. I went in as a grid girl. I'm now, sort of mechanicking and all of that, which I much prefer. I enjoy the media and everything. There's so many different avenues that you can take. I think you just need to be open-minded and very hardworking, to be honest.
Brilliant. Well, Laura Jones, thank you very much for your time this evening. We wish you all the very best in the final round of Formula Woman, and I hope we see you on the GT Cup grid next year. I'm sure our paths will cross in the paddock at some stage with Greystone GT. But thanks very much for your time this evening, and good luck.
No, thank you very much. Just very quickly, if I could just say a massive, massive thank you to everyone for all their support at the moment, whether that's sponsors, partners, family and friends. It's been incredible. So thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Laura. We'll see you again very soon, I hope.
Thank you. Take care. All the best.
Hi, this is Nick Hamilton, and this is Motorsport Radio.
This is Motorsport Radio.
1, 2.
Join the conversation. Contact the show on Twitter, on Facebook, and on our website, Motorsport Radio.
Okay, welcome back. That was Laura Jones there, and Andy. Two great guests to have on the show tonight. Very insightful from both. Well done.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think when we talk about motorsport, we typically, as enthusiasts, talk about the very top levels. We talk about Formula One. We talk about the World Endurance Championship, and those are, of course, fascinating contests, and there's lots to be interested in and lots to discuss. But we kind of sometimes forget that people have to start somewhere, and the lifeblood of this sport are young people choosing it as a career, having the opportunities to learn and having the opportunities to develop a career within it. So to hear about what JP Latham is doing with student motorsport and what Laura has done to develop her own skills and experience to go from being a promotions grid girl to now being a mechanic in a GT3 team, I mean, that is some going. And I think the lesson that we can draw from this is that if you want to succeed in motorsport, you're going to have to work hard, learn skills, get experience, promote and market yourself, take the opportunities when they come around and make the very best of all the opportunities you can get. So I think it's been fascinating to hear those two stories.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I agree with when Laura was just saying there about what advice she would give to anybody wanting to get their foot in the door, so to speak, on the next phase in the ladder. Maybe you're already doing something in motorsport, but it's perhaps not what you want to ultimately do down the line. She said, just be adaptable or flexible. It might be, yes, that you end up doing something slightly left field, not necessarily what the job description is, but if you, I've done it myself. I don't want to keep talking about like myself, but a lot of people who do jobs with motorsport media, they end up sort of doing lots of different jobs, mostly because we're like a small media outfit and everyone has to sort of pitch in. But it helps them gain a bit more experience and knowledge about how to film, motocross, for example. If you're a website editor, who'd have thought? Little things like that. Talking from a media point of view, of course, but from a mechanical point of view, I suppose a similar sort of thing applies, doesn't it?
I think it does, and I think it's like joining any team-based activity. You've got to be prepared to make mistakes. You've got to be prepared to learn from those mistakes. You've got to be prepared to muck in. Yeah. You've got to be prepared to do things that maybe you don't think is your job. I remember when I've worked in teams, you may think your job is to do one particular thing, but the team principal may say to you, "Can you go off and do that?" And it may not be a particularly glamorous job, but it's important for the team. Yeah. And the correct answer is yes, of course. Do you want me to go now? Not, but that's not my job. I don't want to do it. So enthusiasm and the ability to learn. I remember when I was working with a team a few years ago, and I was talking to one of the team members, and he said a lot of people come into motorsport thinking it's all about, being a mechanic or being an engineer, and he said it's not. It's being a jack of all trades. It's learning how to load a car up into the trailer at the end of the day. It's learning how to change tyres. It's learning how to clean wheels. It's learning how to load the transporter. It's learning how to make sure that everybody's got a cup of tea at the right time. It's all those kind of things, and it's learning how to be an effective team member, I think, without trying to be a prima donna or
learning how not to be grumpy when you're exhausted, knowing that everyone else on the team is also exhausted and grumpy, and they just want to go home and get a KFC.
It's all of those things, and a lot of people think, well, any sort of professional sport, and certainly motorsport, is all about glamour and sun and sunglasses and standing around looking cool.
I don't know where you've been, Andy. But
well, that's the whole point. It's not. Sometimes it's cold. It's Sunday afternoon. It's raining. It's not a particularly glamorous location. But hey, that's what motorsport is sometimes, and that's what you've got to understand. It's not necessarily a place for egos. It might be if you're at the very top of your game as a driver in Formula One, but for anybody else, it's working with your teammates and all working towards the same objective, which is to win and be effective.
God, I'm feeling like I can go and do, anything now, listening to Laura and JP, to be honest, but I'll stick within my boundaries of doing just media and doing just okay. Right, then, before we go, Andy, tell us what other glamorous motorsports are happening this weekend.
Well, as we've touched on earlier, we've got the final 2 rounds of the Asian Le Mans Series. This time the series goes to Yas Marina in Abu Dhabi, the scene of that fateful final round of the 2021 Formula One World Championship.
Oh, God.
I'm sure we're not going to see anything like the controversies. We may see some of the drama. I don't think we're going to see the controversies this year. I sincerely hope not. But we've got 2 4-hour races on the Herman Tilke designed 5-kilometre circuit. I think that circuit is a firm fan favourite. It looks beautiful. It's beautifully laid out. The racing is great. You've got that wonderful hotel that changes colour at night in the middle of the circuit. I think the racing is going to be very competitive. As we've already touched on, there's only one entry per class that's going to win that coveted invitation to the 24 Hours of Le Mans this year. There's an awful lot of GT cars. There's some very competitive GT cars, and it's very close at the top. So I think we're going to see some, I hate to use the term fast and furious, but I think that's exactly what it's going to be this year. So I would certainly keep glued to that. You'll find coverage on it on the Asian Le Mans website, on their YouTube channel as well, with excellent live commentary. Again, it's going to be another day into night race, and we all know how beautiful that circuit looks at night. So I think certainly a great spectacle, and it will cement some more entries onto the 24 Hours of Le Mans grid for 2022.
I heard that hotel at Yas Marina, if you want to get a peaceful night's sleep, don't go there, especially on a race weekend. That's I've never been, so I don't know, but that's just what other people who perhaps, because it's a bit of a party atmosphere by all accounts.
I'm sure it is. I have to say, it is on my bucket list. I will stay at that hotel.
Oh, yeah, given the opportunity,
one
if I had the money.
I, in fact, it could well be for this weekend next year, because I think this is a fantastic championship, and I would love to be present as part of the media in 2023 at Yas Marina. I think it'd be a fantastic event.
Well, we'll look forward to maybe some live reporting from the bar at
Let's hope so.
in Yas Marina, and also another hotel. You're just talking about racetrack hotels in Singapore. I'd love to, I forgot the Sands, what's it called? The thingy tower, the three towers. I forgot what it's called now. Looking at, and you've got the big thing over the top.
I think I think I know the one you mean.
Yeah.
I can't remember what its name is. I think
I'd love to stay there during a Grand Prix weekend.
I spent some time in that part of the world many years ago, and it was fascinating then. But I think now, I think the architecture and the development out in that part of the world is just phenomenal, and I would love to travel around there, and I would love to see some of those circuits and be part of the racing out there. I think there's some great circuits. I think hopefully as COVID starts to open up Asia, as we move into 2023, and we can start going back to tracks like Buriram, and we can see the Asian Le Mans series maybe start to spread its wings a bit, we'll see some more fantastic circuits. But racing out in Asia is very competitive. There's significant budgets out there, and a lot of the teams have got an eye on one big prize, which is to get an invitation for the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you, I don't know, you might be setting up shop out there. We might soon, this time next year, as Andy suggested, be seeing the Asian Bureau of Motorsport Radio and Endurance and GT.co.uk reporting live from...
I would love to.
From wherever. But Andy, thank you very much for coming on tonight on Motorsport
My pleasure,
Radio.
Lester. Thank you very much.
John-Paul Latham, thank you also. And also Laura Jones, to impart their wisdom and knowledge. One final thing to mention, by the way, if you are into your bikes, the Superbike Show is back next Wednesday with a new host. Ooh. Stay tuned for that. But next Tuesday, hopefully Andy will be back, and maybe Josh will be back, and Connor, and all the usual people that we usually have on at this time slot. But for now, I've enjoyed it this evening, listening and learning and listening. Andy, thank you very much. And you can download a copy of the show, should you wish, on motorsport.radio.
Good night, everybody.
Join the conversation. Contact the show on Twitter, on Facebook, and on our website, Motorsport Radio.